Okay, this is Mary Ellen Rogowski. I'm the chairman of the Orange County IDA, and I would like to call the IDA meeting to order for August 13th, 2020. And I'll start the meeting by taking the roll call. So Mr. Diana,
Here.
Mr. DeSalvo,
Present.
Mr. Brescher has not arrived yet, Mr. Gatos,
Here.
and Mr. McCary.
Here.
Okay, and then our executive officer, Lori Viasuso, managing director, Vinnie Cozzolino's here, Melanie, chief operating officer, Kevin Dowd, our attorney A, and Russ Genzel, our attorney B, and Ed J, our chief financial officer. Sorry, Ed, I still can't get your name right. Okay, so the first order of business is to the approval of the minutes, first of which is the July 9th board meeting minutes. I just want to say I think you guys did an excellent job documenting the conversations, particularly with Monroe. So thank you for that. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Do we do the pledge, Marielle?
We can. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't know if we did it last time.
We took it off last month, and then this month just because it was awkward, but we can certainly do it if that's what you
Okay.
Maybe we should, you know.
Okay. All right. Mike's got a flag. Way to go, Mike. Okay.
Flag bearer.
All right. So then, so why don't we stand? And I'll start. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm glad you're on the ball there, Mike.
Got it covered.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm sorry, let's get back to where we were, and that is the July 9th board minutes. So if there's no questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
You got a counter flag too? What are you doing?
I gotta cover both sides here.
Okay, did I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, those are approved. And then also for review was the July 9th Governance Committee meeting minutes. Anybody have any questions or comments with respect to those? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve them as presented as well.
So moved.
All right,
Second.
thank you. I'll take one as a second. All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, good. So next up is the financial reports and request for payments. So Ed, take away.
And you're
So
muted.
back here.
There you go.
There you
Okay. All right. I guess the first item was sent to you is gave you a copy of the balance sheet that was requested. There is an error in the the December 31st column in the grand total for the OCA IDA. But the total for the whole thing is correct. Just bring up a couple of things. Compared to where we've been going you see the cash and cash equivalents are down. That's because of all the, we definitely have the grants or the loan program and the money that was to Warwick.
Right.
Offsetting that though, and we go down a little bit, you see the accounts receivable current drop from 913 to 267,000. We did get payment from Legoland of 700,000 for their closing fee that came in, so that reduced the accounts receivable there. But offsetting it was we did give additional money to the Warwick Valley land development.
Right.
Okay, that's basically, those are the major changes there, other than the fact that now you do see, the small business loans
Right.
as a line item.
Okay, there's no fixed assets?
That's in the capital assets net, 657. That's how it was described.
Oh, I see. Okay, it's up above the line. Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right,
All
great.
right. If you want some more detail, I can break that out, but I was just copying what the auditors had.
Yeah, no, I don't think we need any more detail, but thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right.
mentioned that Brescia is joining as we speak.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
make sure I get the right. Okay, so then going to the, from which meeting are we? We're on the, I guess I gotta watch. which-
IDA,
Okay, yes, I gotta watch which one I got here. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, Orange, okay, you got the IDA, all right, so, basically you see, we have, assets of, $7.2 million in the bank. Comment I would, mentioned is, I wanted to mention here, the only thing that I would, mention is that, we took money for the, PPP program, the $50,000 for, that was, we
That's
call it approved.
OCFD.
Yeah, oh, sorry, okay, I'm off by one, okay, all right, fine. Okay, I guess I'm all set then, okay, that's why I'm getting lost. So that's there, on the, Orange County P&L, basically, yeah, again, not much, $24,000 was, spent, and, no, basically still in the, under budget. And then okay, the accelerator, dropping that down, we, showing an income loss of, for the month, 211,000, and, the, excuse me, I'm back to that one there. Year to date, 146,000, or what was it, 1,461,000.
right,
Just going back, to the income and expense on the IDA. What I did want to mention was that, you don't see the closing fees from the,
Legoland,
Legoland, thank you, because that was an accounts receivable.
right,
So that, saying that versus, but I believe the, that's where, that's part of the transition from going to cash to, the accrual basis.
right.
So trying to get that work done now rather than trying to correct it later. Yeah, all right, took care of that part. And now we're down to the, approvals for the voucher payments. You see, you got the money for the closing fee, 702,000. And then I have requests for approval on payment for 21,000, including the TSEC second quarter activity. And then basically most of the other ones are standard monthly we count payments to the for legal, for consulting, and bookkeeping.
Okay, with the Loki Brill, was that our expense or what is that?
That is on the, by our expense.
Well, is it an expense to us or we're just paying it out of the escrow account?
So,
Yeah,
can I help you?
okay, I'll have to get back on all the transactions. I haven't gone through all that stuff. I'll have to,
Okay,
because this is the same, I will double check.
Lori, you might know.
Yeah, so some of these, remember, Legoland is still one that we do at our expense.
Okay,
So the site visits for Legoland will still be ours. We would still show that the expense, we do pass it through. So even if it's not one that we would pay for, we still show it as a check to them.
yeah, no, I understand that. I just was
But
curious.
yeah, a majority of this, we only have 3 projects going right now. And one
Okay.
of them is Legoland. That was the heaviest lift. There have been a ton of emails going back and forth on Legoland. So I would say that of this, probably 3/4 of it is Legoland, which would be our expense.
Okay, thank
But
you.
Ed can get us the detail
Yeah.
and send it out after.
Look at the
Okay.
detail.
Okay, and then this 700,000 would be included in the bank account balances, correct?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Okay, anybody have any questions or comments?
No.
Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the vouchers and payments for August.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Do we have to approve the financial report? I don't remember.
Yes.
Yes.
So
okay,
moved.
Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Ed. Next up is new and unfinished business, the chairman's report. And I would just, the only thing I'd like to say is, again, unfortunately for the second month in a row, express my sadness at the loss of our board member, Bob Scrabbies, who unfortunately passed away this past month unexpectedly. He was a really great board member. He'll be sadly missed, very engaged and helpful, and his experience was very valuable to us. And my condolences to his family, and especially since they lost 2 people within 60 days, which is just terrible. So he's going to be missed. He made a great contribution, and I guess that's all I have to say about that. And that's the only thing I have. So then we'll move on to the Chief Executive Officer report.
Okay. Should be pretty quick. First of all, the COVID-19 safety plan was sent out. The paper copy is available on request. We're having today's meeting via Zoom because the executive order to allow remote public meetings was signed and authorized through September 4th. The habit has been that essentially those executive orders get signed almost on the day that they expire. So we won't know what September holds for us until September 4th. But right now, all of our meetings are still perfectly reasonable to be held remotely. In your packets, just a few things to call attention to. This was emailed out to the board through the month, but it's also in your packets. The ABO IDA new project analysis is in your packet. I had mentioned that, we as a board have discussed in the past the potential for solar development. And there were some comments in that audit about solar, whether or not it's something that IDA should do, are there jobs related to it, their state incentives. So I'm just calling your attention to that to review as something that we continue to get requests for solar projects. So I'm sure it's something that we'll discuss as a board again in the future, but it's just something interesting to kind of color the conversation in the future. In addition, the IDA annual performance report is also in your packet. That's an annual report that the Office of the State Comptroller issues once a year. It's 2 years removed essentially because they do 2018's audit and it takes them a while to get through those numbers. As always, I will take this time to talk about my grievances with the Paris system, and not necessarily that I'm not complaining about submitting the data. It's just, I give credit to the OSC and the ABO on this. It's very hard to draw an accurate picture based on a static set of numbers that IDAs are responsible to submit, because projects can be in any phase of their development, but they're all kind of treated the same when it comes to Paris. So we've talked about that with the OSC. We've met them a number of times through not only our own interactions and audits with them, but also at the Statewide Economic Development Council. They're aware of that, but there's really no perfect formula. So again, just keep that in mind as you review that report. Also, speaking of the EDC, John McCary, you had asked us to send out Jeff Proman's PowerPoint and video from the IDA training or IDA Academy from last month. We're finally able to get that, so we sent that to the board members as well. It's available for you all to view. He mentioned a lot of things. It talks a lot about board members' responsibilities and requirements, and I think it was a very good conversation at the end, especially of that video. There were some good questions being asked and some good dialogue back and forth. So I encourage everyone to view that. However, I will remind you that in the future, what we'd like to do is have a training, and have Jeff Proman present to give that training in person. That way it makes it easier to have questions, to have the dialogue, and to really kind of understand some of the nuances about board member requirements. Board retreat training, again, we rescheduled because, again, with the unfortunate passing of Mr. Scrabbies, we anticipate that we'll be getting a new member. So we are putting that on hold until we can have a new member appointed, and then include that person in a training and retreat as well. Last month's meeting, we had NDC here with the Monroe planning, with the Monroe Town Supervisor, discussing their RFQ and including the provision for the possibility of IDA exemptions with their RFQ. That's in your packet. So Russ reviewed it, redlined it, and then we submitted it to them. So that's in there for your review as well. Again, everything that we discussed in our meeting, I believe, was reflected in the document that they put out. Lastly, just as sort of not a refresher, but with everything that's happening from COVID recovery, obviously, and then certainly throughout the counties and throughout the country. There's been a lot of attention on a lot of things, but the IDA attention continues. And so I wanted to just give everybody a quick overview of a few bills that have been presented over the past 6 months, since January rather, that directly relate to IDAs. Some of them have life, some of them don't. We'll never know exactly what's going to happen, of course, with any bills until they're actually all voted on. But there are a number of items. For instance, a bill that was introduced relating to compensation, which would prohibit state or local elected officials or persons in leadership of a party from receiving compensation for work performed for an IDA. Again, that's or an economic development corporation or a state or local authority. So again, conflict of interest is something that's on top of everyone's mind. There's been another bill that's been introduced about gender balance and equity in the makeup of boards and making sure that they're representative of the communities that they present. So this one in particular talks about having half women, half men, but in general, there's a sentiment, I think, at the state level to ensure that boards across the state, not just IDAs, but a lot of boards, again, are representing the community that they serve, rather than, sorry, no offense, guys, but a bunch of guys on the board. So there is that out there. The next one was an increase.
What was that, Lori? I didn't hear that. What was that?
What was
I
that?
didn't hear that last one. What was the last thing you said?
It's about gender balance. So across the state, they're
Yeah.
looking at gender balance and diversity in board construction and makeup.
Okay, that's pending in
Yeah, so it is right now. It says currently the bill has passed the Assembly. The Senate just recently amended the bill to match Assembly bill on August 3rd. Senate bill is in the Corporations and Authorities Committee. But with the bill passed in the Assembly, this bill will have some momentum if the Senate comes back in session in August.
okay.
The next one is about increased powers of the ABO. So again, this goes back to the fact that oversight for IDAs it continues to grow. So increases the oversight powers of the ABO by requiring authorities to publish response to recommendations. Failure to comply would make us delinquent, would make not us, an authority delinquent in reporting requirements. Makes the knowing and willful submission of false financial report to the ABO perjury in the 3rd degree. Allows the ABO to remove authority board members that failed to complete state mandated training, directs the Department of State to notify the ABO of any new not-for-profit LDCs, and provides the ABO with power to annul basically the existence or dissolve the corporation like an IDA that's acted beyond its capacity. This bill is poised to pass both houses, I'm told. So again, these are things that are top of mind everywhere. The next one is further reporting for school boards. So this legislation, it's twofold, requires local labor on IDA boards. We have that satisfactorily met with Mike, but it does require that all IDA boards have a local labor representative, requires that projects receiving pilots and notice of meetings of financial assistance and pilots to school districts, state senators, members of the assembly representing the affected area, requires published written IDA agenda 3 days in advance of meetings. Some of these things, by the way, we do already. I'd like to take a moment to say that we do publish our meetings well and our agendas well in advance of our meetings. All of our information is available online. We do send out right now to the affected jurisdictions, as we're required, notices of meetings and public hearings. We don't right now send them to specifically the Assembly and Senate representatives. But this bill would change it to add that level to our notifications. It also requires that we provide annual reports to school districts that have that are overlapping with IDAs. Again, we already provide pilots to school districts. We provide notice to school districts. This would require us to provide our annual report like we do to the legislature and like we do to the state. And then the last one, but another one which was introduced was allowing for the examination of industrial development agencies by county controllers. This would be in addition to the ABO, the OSC, and then of course, as a public authority, we're already open to FOIL requirements. So there's a lot of oversight. There are a lot of oversight measures being introduced in addition to an elected officials bill, which would prohibit any elected official serving at a county, town, city, or village capacity would be prohibited from serving as an IDA member. That was introduced as part of Skoufis's package of legislation. He and another senator had put together some of which I mentioned already, but this one would also, part of that package also includes banning of assistance to IDA projects already in development, ban IDA assistance where the project occupant is secret. So like, we have a lot of code names sometimes that come to us. That would be, would no longer be allowed should that pass. And then
Lori, did you say overdevelopment?
already in development.
Oh, okay.
So like they used in their press release, I think erroneously, the Dana Distributors Project, but they're trying to say that if you're already in development, you can't come to an IDA after the fact and say, I want incentives. That one, they came to us well before they were in development, but we're not gonna go back to that well right now. But
Yeah.
so there are a number of items in here. The reason, and then the last one that I want to talk about briefly, just to refresh everyone's memory, is the prevailing wage bill that did pass, was signed, that goes into effect as of January of 2022, that would require any project in excess of 5 million, where 30% of the total construction costs would be public funds. That would be an IDA, ESD grant, anything like that, would be required to abide by prevailing wage laws. So there are a number of nuances in that bill, but that, again, that one doesn't start until 2022. The governor will appoint a labor committee to oversee that, to also kind of guide that legislation, because that committee would have the authority to delay the implementation of the legislation, not stop it, but delay it, based on the extenuating circumstances like COVID that we're in right now. There are a number of questions at a number of levels about how this will affect IDAs. The fact that the project operator is responsible for calculating the value of public funds in their project means that, there may be some discrepancies. They would require IDAs and ESD and other public funding entities to really communicate to make sure that that's an aggregated amount and not a piecemeal. We talked about this a little bit in audit, but as this is still unfolding, there's obviously, as with any piece of legislation, as you're starting to, after it's been passed and you start to think about implementation, is when the true sort of wrinkles start to get ironed out. Low-Key Brill is doing an excellent job of staying on top of all of that. So as we get closer, so not in 2022 when it's already implemented, but certainly early to middle next year, we'll have them really give us a solid overview of what that looks like, what it means to us, and how we will actually have to react. We'll have to change some things in our application. But again, this is all, I'm bringing you all of this because I think it's important to remember that while, from an IDA perspective, I know our accelerator is very busy, which we'll talk about shortly. IDA wise, we're a little slow right now, which is good because we're not just incentivizing for the sake of incentivizing at this point. And I think that every board member should be very proud of that. But even while we're slow, all of these changes and oversight measures are still being sought and, investigated and looked at. So I want to make sure that I'm keeping you guys on top of all of that as well, because it will affect very deeply, what we do going forward. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, it just astounds me that they have that much time in Albany to worry about all the IDA regulations and labor and economic development and all the regulations when they don't work on balancing a budget that's over $14 billion in the hole and opening small businesses. Like, we've done an amazing job. Lori and Vinny and team done an amazing job to help small businesses, and they have time to make it burdensome, for small businesses and development that are going to help turn this economy around. And it just amazes me that they can spend so much time on that and helping with unemployment benefits instead of helping small businesses and try to turn this economy around. I'm sorry, that was my rant, but it amazes me. And Senator Skoufis, that's obviously pointed at a few members on the IDA board, but with respect to elected officials. So, he's got a lot of time on his hands too. That's my 2 cents.
I can appreciate your thoughts there, Steve. I got a couple of questions. The first of which is, with respect to the labor policy, or the, what's it called?
Prevailing wage?
Thank you. I was having trouble there. When you say it has to be 30% of the total project cost has to be public money,
Mm-hmm.
it seems to me that the value of the benefits that we provide would not come close to being that kind of percentage.
That's correct. However,
Okay.
it would be included with any public funds. So if ESD comes to the table and they
Okay.
get a grant, anything
Okay.
like that, anything that's from the state, that would be all aggregated. So
And then the burden of proof is on the applicant or the developer?
it is. So it is up to them to I'll tell you, I'll find the.
Well, what I'm thinking of is, we're relying on these people to provide information that if they don't tell the truth, could probably work out better for them. Yet we would be subject to scrutiny. I mean, it doesn't seem like.
Absolutely. No,
Well,
that's
there's
the
not the proper
problem.
checks and balances there.
Yeah, we talked about that at the state level too, because, so I asked the question of, so Brown Weinrob, as you guys know, Alex Becky of Brown Weinrob, as our lobbyist, was the one who's been tracking this for us, and they gave me a nice memo, which I believe was in a packet a few months ago, but I'll send it out again. But I had asked the question about who was responsible for determining the 30%, and the fact that oftentimes I wouldn't even know necessarily if our application asks if there are other public funds, but if they seek public funds after we've given an approval, we wouldn't know. So their response was, as of course we are part of public funds, but determination of the threshold is made by owner or developer of the project, and the 30% is cumulative. So there will have to be a check and balance. We've
that's a
talked about
bad
that
idea.
even with the ABO, because we'll have to report on it as well. So
Right.
it's going to be very complicated.
Okay, the other question I had, and this is for our lawyer fellows, in one of the additional powers to the ABO, they're talking about third-degree perjury. What does that mean in terms of a criminal charge? Or what's the teeth of something like that? You got to unmute
Kevin,
yourself.
you're
there,
on
Kevin.
mute. Yeah.
I would have to, let me see if I can check that out for you while we're talking, because I have to look it up on the penal code. I don't know what that is. It sounds like it's at least an e-felony, but I'll check it out.
Yeah, I would like to understand what that means. Not that I think any of us would do anything like that, but it would be good to know what the intent is. So,
Yeah,
okay, thanks.
absolutely.
Anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah, just a quick comment on, and sort of echoing what Mr. Brescia said. It's a typical "don't do as I do, do as I say" mentality coming from on high, especially with some sitting state officials that oversee or appear to oversee our area. I find it remarkable that it doesn't matter if the person is a good fit or their life experiences or knowledge comes into play. We're not worried about that. We're not worried about the person or the board member's ability to serve in the capacity. We're just worried about getting rid of people we might not like personally. And so, we kind of knew this was going to happen, but I'm just amazed to see and hear the language on some of these ridiculous bills as the state continues to slip off into the abyss. So that's my little 2 cents.
I think that was more than 2 cents, but thank you.
Oh, it was probably a nickel. It was definitely a nickel's worth.
What's the interest rate?
Yeah, that's right. Anybody else have anything they'd like to say? Okay, thank you, Lori. Next up on the agenda is the accelerator report. Ed?
Yeah, so we had a very informative meeting today. We had Michael come in and talk about Orange Packing and his business and how the accelerator and Lori and Vinny and Melanie and all the staff members helped so tremendously to keep that business afloat. It's been around for 70 years. It has now close to 133 employees. And they really weathered the storm through the COVID situation because of what our accelerator and what Vinny, Lori, and the staff did to help. So Vinny, why don't you either give a little bit more of an in-depth response because you know it a little more in depth than I do, or is Michael going to speak to the whole board today at all? Vinny, I'm not sure.
Vinny, you're muted.
If you're okay with that, Ed, I'm going to let Mike speak to the board.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
so
fine.
the last 2 months, last month and this month, We bought an Accelerator Without Walls company last month, was FPS Apparel. And they talked about how the Accelerator Without Walls program was helpful to them. And the Accelerator Committee got the details. And then we decided that the Accelerator Committee, and under Eddie's direction, is that this is information the whole board should have. So this month, we're asking Mike Esposito, who's one of the executives at Orange Packaging, which is in Newburgh. I know, Steve Brescia, you visited them in person. And they're going to give an update on how they've been working with the Accelerator, so the rest of our board can maybe have a better appreciation of the program. So if that's okay, Ed, I'm going to let Mike start
Sure.
talking. Okay.
Okay, Vinny.
Mike,
Okay, Michael.
Everybody, how are you? So, some people here I see familiar faces, know about my company, but I'll try to get right to the point. I have a lot of examples on how we've worked with the Accelerator and how beneficial they were to our company. But in a nutshell, like Vinny said, we're in our 70th year, 4th generation. My brother's son has started with us about 6 years ago, which in and of itself, we're very proud of. Everybody knows the history of manufacturing is not an easy business to be in by any means, especially in New York and especially in the city of Newburgh. So you'll see as I go through everything that we've done, we've really diversified since my grandfather started the company in 1950, just die cutting for the pocketbook industry. We've morphed 20 times and not only changed what we do, but we've really just added different divisions to keep our core business and then add different things to benefit our current customers. So our relationship started with the Accelerator a while back, where we started looking for grants to consolidate into one building, possibly in the town of Newburgh and the city of Newburgh. Lori and Vinny were very helpful in walking us through that process, clarifying all the obstacles, introducing us to key people to help us get through the application process, which we obviously knew nothing about. This didn't move forward, but it was based on our own business choices between my brother and myself. The next stage that I felt was very crucial to us is the Accelerator introduced us to key people. And one of the key people was Jim Meinecker. He is an engineer. He was brought in to evaluate our business to see if we were being as efficient, if we were automated enough to facilitate the stuff that we did. And Jim went on to not only open our eyes to a lot of things that we were doing, but he also came up with this robotic arm. Quick story, interesting story. A ball manufacturer in Long Island. They buy all of the deflated balls from China. They bring them in here. They distribute them to all the stores. It's the inflatable balls that you see that are in the cages in CVS, Walgreens, Walmart. We landed the job. We got the people, hired the people to do it. Within the first week, people started dropping out and not showing up for work because it was too hard to do the application of take the air hose, put it into the rubber ball, and expand the ball and then place it. So what Jim did was Jim created very quickly this robotic arm, which I'll show you a quick video of. Oh, jeez. So this eliminated a lot of the hand labor, kept everybody working, kept the account at Orange Packaging, because we were to the point where we thought we were going to have to tell the customer that we could no longer do this because the labor force just wasn't going to be available. After he built this arm, we approved it, made some tweaks. We went on to make 16 to 20 different robotic arms, and the job is still running today. So it's really a lot of these stories that I'll go through that are directly related back to the Accelerator and have directly related the success of Orange Packaging, being able to hire people, keep customers, and grow and diversify, which brings us to COVID. It's really the same thing, but on steroids. When COVID hit, everybody here has to realize that our company is a retail-based company. Our bloodline is stores, malls, cosmetics, like you name it. Whatever's out there in the stores, we make the displays for them, or we make the marketing material for them and ship them to all the retail locations. So you can imagine how devastated we were when everything started closing down. My brother and I did not know how we were going to navigate this. We honestly felt like it may be the end of our long run. So we started out with the PPP applications that was brought to my attention through Lori, Vinny, Nancy. And I have some notes here, so bear with me because it's a lot to say. So So if it wasn't for the accelerator and Vinny, Nancy, and Lori, we would not have been able to navigate in those stressful times. Vinny and Nancy, they made themselves available 24/7. We found ourselves on calls with them at 11 o'clock at night. I also gave a lot of my friends who own their own businesses in Newburgh. A lot of them, everybody here knows their names if I started saying them. They made themselves available, and they were taking the calls from them to help them try to navigate also through the crisis. And I alerted my friends to the accelerator because of how much they were helping me, and they all found it very, very helpful. And I was thanked over and over again for the information that Nancy shared and that I shared with them, all originating from the accelerator. It was their office that suggested that we use the credit union. We were going to use our own bank because obviously they know us, they know our finances. We have a great relationship with them. Our bank backed out at the last minute because of all the controversy of what bank was going to do this, what bank wasn't. Nancy had a relationship at the Hudson Valley Credit Union. We used them, got approved. We literally, I don't think Nancy's on this call, but she worked with my team. They were willing to be up at midnight. They were going to stay up. So when the portal went live, they were going to submit the application. I think that changed, but they were prepared that night to do that. Long story short, got approved. We received our funds, and that helped us dramatically with our current business, our base of business that just literally disappeared. That helped us get through, pay our payroll, and get back on track. So I think that the real purpose of the PPP were a poster child for how that was beneficial to manufacturers like myself. And by the way, we've never received any assistance prior to this. We've really been a self-contained business, family business. We've never really reached out for help, but when we needed it, it really came through. The webinars, amazing webinars. Again, if everybody can put themselves back in March, panic time, you don't have information, you have a friend saying this, another business owner saying that. When you get to the webinars where people from the SBA educated about the whole process, and like I said earlier, if they didn't know it, they said, we don't have an answer to that. And that helped us sleep at night because you really understood what the parameters were, what was real, what wasn't real. Mid-March, my brother and I cut a face mask out, and I put it on Facebook just for our friends saying, look, I know it's crazy. Everybody's looking for protection. If anybody wants these, we can cut these out. We can make them. Video gets posted. It goes viral. And when I mean viral, there was 1,000 shares by the next day. We had people showing up at our door from St. Luke's Hospital, from Vassar Hospital. My phone was ringing off the hook from medical professionals asking, could we please get them the face shields? We immediately made tooling, and within 48 hours after that, we were manufacturing at a high rate of speed the face shields that we came up with. One of the key things that I said to Vinny that I found very interesting was, and I still don't know the answer, but everyone has heard the story. I had nurses from St. Luke's showing up at my door with the look on their faces. Obviously, they were going through hell, just asking for, what do you have? What can we take? And we were throwing hundreds and hundreds of shields in their cars or face masks, whatever we got our hands on. And they said that the hospitals did not have the ability to supply them with what they needed. I called up Vinny while they're at my front door. I said, this is what they're saying to me right now. Vinny called the hospital purchasing person and said, is this true? Do you guys have enough PPE? And the answer was, yes, we're fine, Vinny. We don't need anything. And hung up, got back on the phone with me and said, this is the answer I just got, which I said before, I still would love to hear the answer, how that was possible. And it's not just one hospital, it was rampant. Everybody heard the stories, but it was just very hard to understand how the purchasing people thought they had enough, but yet you had nurses and doctors calling me and showing up and trying to get their own material manufactured, which was just insane. Anyway, let's see, I'll go through my notes. One of the other things that we were doing is, since we started doing the face shields, the accelerator was aware of what I was doing. There was other companies that were trying to do the same thing. I had a highway to my mill, I'm their biggest customer. So they were making whatever I needed to make. I had a priority spot on their machines. Vinny asked me, can you help me source the material? Because other people need to make this stuff as well. I did. It wasn't a time for profits or margins, and we ended up giving Vinny the material that we were purchasing so he could then distribute it to the local companies that were also starting to make face shields after we were making the face shields. All of this, I said before, is a direct result of the accelerator. Vinny, Lori, Nancy, I cannot speak highly enough about them and how they helped my family's business get through this. Currently, we manufactured 3 million face shields, where today we started a new order for 4 million face shields. These are crazy numbers to a manufacturer like myself, but we've adapted, we've converted our machinery, and we can produce the 4 million in 8 weeks. That's how efficient we've got from literally hand cutting them, in March. We're also adapted to make 700,000 gowns to date. We're currently in a bid. When I say gowns, they're disposable, the plastic disposable surgical gowns, level 1 to 3. So we've made up to 700,000 to this date. Right now, we're waiting for another $700,000 piece order to be awarded to us. We're hoping here on Monday. If that happens, we have to hire 200 people. So tremendous amount of growth that one order would create for us, as well as putting us into the PPE market. We're also on the federal bid for the 300 million gowns. I don't know if everyone's aware of this, but there's a large bid out there that within 1 year, through the Berry Act, I believe it's called, they will award domestic manufacturers 300 million of these gowns to manufacture. We're totally set up, ready to go. We do it. We've been doing it since March, so we're hoping that we're going to be part of the group that gets awarded part of this business, because as far as I know, not one manufacturer could possibly do that. We would gear up to do 75,000 gowns a day is what our production capacity would be, as long as we could get the labor force, which we're working with temp agencies in preparation to being awarded this bid. I know it's a lot of stuff. Hop in, tell me to shut up if I'm going on and on, but there's a lot of great stuff here that, once you sit down and I wrote everything out, it really is an amazing story on how the accelerator helped us and we helped other people, and how my business has grown and sustained itself, through all this time. We had 74 people at the time in March when COVID hit. My brother and I took drastic pay cuts. We kept everyone on board. And now, after the quarantines lifted, we're back to our normal levels, and we've added up to 131 people right now with the work that we have in-house. Our old business, our core business, disappeared during COVID. It's now back, and doubled, not doubled, but it's now accentuated with all the PPE that we're doing. What else? The accelerator has also introduced us to many different players in Orange County, like James Burpo, who Steve Brescia and Lori and Vinny have helped create a relationship with me. So we're currently waiting for that the government will be ordering PPE from us in the near future. Vinny talked about Jay Feinberg at FPS. We're now a customer relationship where I'm creating gowns for him, and I'm also buying some of his material and selling to my clients. Series Technology was also introduced to us over a year ago. Series Technology, if you look at my core business, you would never think that we are capable of doing what we ended up doing for Series Technology, which is actually making core components for a vending machine through our thermoforming process. Very difficult, very high-end, very specific manufacturing that we have to pull off. We actually just got our first purchase order for production after a year of R&D with them. At the end of the day, like I said, I want to thank the IDA board for offering the Accelerator Without Walls program to a small business like ourselves. We're growing because of them. They offer services that I could never get, that I would never think of unless I have the guidance from people like Vinny, Lori, Nancy to help me out. So hopefully that gives everybody an idea, hearing it from the horse's mouth of a manufacturer that's been around a long time. It does a lot of different things, is very diverse, very dedicated to Newburgh and New York. We've been here for 5 generations, have been in Newburgh, 4 generations in my business. And I think everybody here knows that it's tough for a family-owned business manufacturer in New York State and in the city of Newburgh to do business, but we still have some ammunition left in us, so we're still diversifying. The end.
All right, Michael, thank you for that. dissertation. It
job,
was very
great job.
informative. And I think the board members will take that and see the great work that's been going on for the last 6 months now to help people through this COVID situation. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's a great story to tell. I really appreciate your time, Michael. And, you know, I'm sure the rest of the board members will concur that we're very happy that your regular business is back up and running and you're growing and that we were able to help you. So much continued success to you.
Great.
Madam
Thanks,
Chair, can
everybody.
I just say something?
Sure.
Sure.
You know, I think we should put this on our website, at least even clips of what Michael just presented, because this is, you know, to me, it's near and dear to my heart. I mean, Eddie, your family was in business over 60 years, my family too, and there are very few businesses around that that you can say that about. And you know, they're a class family. I've known Tony and
Yeah.
Anthony for over 30 years, and more recently Michael. And I was so impressed with their operation. And for them to adapt with the help of the accelerator, is really a success story that we should boast about and get out there, because it's not the only one, but it's
Right.
one of the largest stories. And it really is such a positive for the accelerator and IDA. And I can't thank Maureen Binney and team. And Michael, what you guys have done with this turnaround is a boilerplate for other businesses in Orange County that
Yep.
should try to adapt during this COVID crisis. So thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
You know, just real quickly, if you don't mind, I want to say how, you know, it's been such a treat to work with Orange Packaging, you know, as someone who's new to manufacturing, you know, new in the last like 5 or so years, to be able to watch these relationships unfold, I think has been really exciting. And from the board, I think for myself personally, to see the way that Mike, you've been able to work with other manufacturers, even people who weren't necessarily in your field of reference, you know, like sewers, cut and sew companies, all of these things, just really, I think is a testament. I think Mary Ellen said this earlier in our accelerator meeting, really a testament to sort of the fabric of an accelerator and the things it can do. But I really want to thank you in particular and appreciate your cooperation. This has been beautiful to watch for all of the trauma that everyone's been through during this COVID time. It's really been incredible to see people be so selfless, so cooperative, and really just work toward a greater good. And I know that sounds very Pollyanna and kumbaya, but at the end of the day, it was exactly what we needed in the time that we had it. So I want to thank you for that. And I think all of our entrepreneurs should be so grateful that you were there with them as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep. Very good.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to sign off. Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye.
All right,
Thank
Michael.
you.
Take care, Eddie.
Mary Ellen?
Yes.
Just to get the answer to your question you asked before Mike took over. So a perjury in the third degree is an A misdemeanor.
Okay.
Carries with it a penalty of $1,000 fine, a year in jail, or both.
Okay. Thanks.
You know.
Gee, that's great news.
Yeah.
Okay, next on the agenda is the board committee reports, and I believe that the audit committee met today.
Yes, we did meet today, and I wish we had as much good stuff to talk about as the accelerator program. I'll let Lori step in, but we did talk about we got a labor policy audit update that Loki Brill's kind of working with and getting well adjusted with as we move forward with the state's new guidelines. So they've dove into that head first, and we'll be ahead of other IDAs because of the knowledge that they have and moving us forward. So I know we have something else to talk about, which I actually can't wait. But Lori, do you have anything more to add about that?
Yeah, so the Kevin from Loki Brill came in also, in addition to talking about prevailing wage, mentioned that our projects right now, we have 3 active projects. 2 of them, one is at 96% compliance. The other one was at 100% compliance, which is great. The third is Legoland. It is below the 85% right now, but as a reminder to everyone, our compliance is measured over the course of the entire job. So Loki Brill is confident that they'll have a very heavy local aspect. They're at 79% right now. Loki Brill is very confident that Legoland will meet and exceed the 85% requirement for local labor. They did present one exemption, which was for GAM development, which is in Goshen. And it is for for a blasting company that they sought. Actually, they worked with Mike Gatos and Loki Brill to try to find a local representative, and just for a lot of reasons weren't able to find anyone who was even actually willing to do the job locally. So they've requested an exemption for that. The audit committee then approved that and recommended that to the full board for approval. Although now I can't remember if we do those in full board approvals or not, but do we? Yeah, I'm just having a moment. But so they did recommend that for approval. And the other issue, Jim, that you can't wait to talk about, we're going to actually talk about under resolutions.
Can't wait.
I know you can't wait. So that would be the audit one for now.
Okay, is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
That was it. Like I said,
yeah.
not that exciting.
Okay. I don't think you need the full board for the waiver.
I don't think so either. I don't one of those.
Okay, and the other committee report would be governance committee. Did governance committee meet today? Okay.
Yes, we did. And we had a discussion last month. We started to discuss some of our agencies that we fund throughout the year. And one that came up was HVADC, Hudson Valley Agricultural Development Corp. And Lori has some more detail about it, but there are basically 8 counties that are involved in that consortium. And of that, 5 of them give $25,000. And they are Columbia, Dutchess, Orange, Sullivan, and Ulster. And 3 other ones that are involved but do not do any funding because it primarily deals with agriculture and farming. And the other 3 counties do not do much of that at all, which would be Putnam, Rockland, and Westchester. So they don't put into the pot like the other counties do, but it's very helpful to our farmers and our agribusinesses that we help throughout these 7 or 8 county region. And I think it's worthwhile to continue to fund it. Melanie gave us some insight as well as to we've tightened up the requirements and the actual deliverables that they're going to deliver to the IDA for the $25,000. So I think we've even tightened up what they're supposed to do for that amount of money. So I think it was informative, and I think we should continue at least for another year with these little tighter requirements that we're going to ask of them now.
Do you need a motion?
Lori, do you have anything to add to that, Lori?
The only thing I think that was actually quite perfect. The only thing I would add is that this will all be a part. We wanted to, in advance of the budget conversations, which Melanie, Vinny, Ed, and I will be meeting this week to develop sort of our first draft of the budget. And we wanted to take a look at our agents prior to the budget conversations, because if the governance committee felt that this agent wasn't sort of, not welcome, but shouldn't be a part of the budget for 2021, we would have that conversation with that agent at this point, rather than going through the budget process, including it. So with the governance committee's feedback, we will go ahead and make that part of the budget. And then of course the full board will vote on that by no later than October, but probably in September.
Okay. All right, Lori, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Do you need a motion on that, Madam Chair?
I don't think so. I think it goes, within the budget. So, and the recommendation of the
Right.
But thank you. So next up is resolution, and the first one is St. Luke's Cornwall Hospital.
Sure. So I will. I'll give the little preview here. The St. Luke's. Tom Gibney is here with us from St. Luke's Cornwall. We had in just prior to the world falling apart with COVID, we had acted to terminate the agreement with St. Luke's, not because anything was happening, but because they were refinancing and they were going to be paying off the longstanding bonds that St. Luke's had with the IDA. For reasons that Tom can address, they decided they did not pursue that. So instead, they're going to be receiving a grant from the state, and the state requires our consent for them to use those funds in a specific way. So actually, Tom, before I butcher it further, I will turn it over to you if you'd like to give a little history / update on what it is that we'll be doing with St. Luke's today.
Yes, so thank you for that. And can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm driving, so I don't know if I'm off of mute or not. So it sounds like I am. So, yeah, just a quick background. We thought this wasn't going to be necessary because of the fact that we had secured financing to actually repay all of our debt back in March, but then COVID hit, and part of the prerequisite to getting that funding was Montefiore, the mothership, was going to guarantee all of the debt, but with the COVID crisis hitting and the uncertainty around some of the finances, I think everyone was a little bit uncomfortable at the Montefiore level in terms of issuing that guarantee. And so that refinancing went off the table. And because it did, we needed to come back to the table here to ask for your consent relating to this grant that we got from the state, $12 million grant to upgrade our Cornwall facility. And because of the fact that some dollars from the 2001 B bonds, very few, I think it's less than 25,000 we figured out, actually impacted the space that was going to be funded by this $12 million grant, we technically need the consent from the OCIDA relating to the use of those funds to basically say that, you're okay with it. And it goes part and parcel. I don't know if Russ is on the phone, but it goes part and parcel with the tax opinion letter that we'll be getting from Harris Beach that is to the effect that nothing relating to this grant will affect the tax exempt nature of these bonds. So I'll stop there and open it up for questions.
Russ, did you want to add anything to that?
No. That's the perfect summary. Tom and I and others, were ready to go with TD Bank, but as Tom pointed out, the bottom fell out of the market, so we're back to the grant process, and it's very pro forma consent of the IDA because some of the 2001 B bond money was used in the facility, so it's doesn't impact us in any way.
No, it's just to me, it would be just a technical challenge. So, okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, I guess we'll go forward with the resolution then, Mr. Dowd.
Sure. Resolution terminating the approvals of the issuer under its resolution dated April 9, 2020, authorizing consent with respect to the additions, modifications, or improvements of certain existing project facilities. And 3, authorizing and delegating authority to chairman, vice chairman, and chief executive officer to execute and deliver such consents and any related documents.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Diana,
Yes.
Mr. DeSalvo,
Yes.
Mr. Brescia,
Yes.
Mr. Gatos,
Yes.
Mr. McCary,
Yes.
Madam Chairwoman.
Yes.
That's 6 ayes, Madam Chairwoman. The resolution is adopted.
Okay, thank you. So you're good to go, Tom.
Yes.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good afternoon.
All right, thanks for calling
You
in.
too, Tom.
Okay, Tom.
Bye.
Bye. Just so everybody knows, and you probably caught this in Kevin's reading of the resolution, but we also wanted to ensure that we terminated the action that was taken earlier this year. So record keeping wise, we've closed that circle.
Okay, good. Okay, and next up is Craftify.
Yes, so I'm going to turn it over to Russ for a little bit more of the detail here, but essentially Russ had been contacted by Craftify, which, as everyone will recall, is the brewery in Warwick. And they had reached out to us because they were doing an SBA loan and required our subordination. Of course, that would kick in board action. But in order to go ahead and provide that subordination approval, or even to act on it at our meeting, we requested that they pay us the fees that were outstanding. And the fees were twofold. One was to make them whole with Low-Key Brill because they had exceeded their escrow balance. And then the second was a labor policy penalty that was assessed because they had violated an exemption waiver process. So in all, I think it was about $2,500 that we were looking to recoup before we were able to provide the subordination. And in relaying that to the attorney, Russ was contacted and said that because of all of the fees and the expenses to deal with an IDA, the Craftify project wanted to just terminate their agreements with the IDA. So Russ, anything that I've missed in that?
No, that's exactly what, so I was contacted by a partner out of my Albany office that's doing the SBA part of it, does not represent Craftify. They wouldn't need a mortgage recording tax exemption from us. They just need us to subordinate. I provided comments on the subordination agreement. And I then advised him to tell Craftify that before the IDA does everything, they've got to get caught up on outstanding fees, which Lori mentioned are, all of $2,500. A few weeks then went by, and I was advised, or we were advised, that we don't want to deal with the IDA anymore. It's too expensive and administratively reporting burdensome. So we want to just terminate. I told them to send a letter or an email, which they did. The resolution that is being presented today basically authorizes the termination of the lease back, and put the property back on the tax roll. So I don't know if they've done their math, because they're only
I can assure you they haven't done their math.
Because they're only a year or two into the pilot, if I recall.
They're not in the pilot yet. So actually where they are, they're just completing their sales and use tax. They just finished, they're just in their first year of their pilot, I guess, technically, because they just
Right.
finished.
So it would be one thing if they were on the out years and there was a 10% abatement or something like that, and they didn't want to deal with the IDA anymore. I could understand that. So I don't know if they've done the number crunching that I would do if I had a pilot, but that's not, frankly, my problem or your problem. If they want to terminate, they have the right to do that. And then Lori and Kevin and I were talking further, and we wanted the board to know, well, hey, this is what's going on. And obviously you have to approve that anyway. So what's being asked as of right now is termination of all the lease back and pilot documents, which again would put the property back on the tax roll. So that's really it.
Do we have any right to recoup any of the incentives we've already given, the sales tax and the mortgage tax?
That's a good question. I don't think so, because
Okay.
remember, they have, a company has the right to terminate. If they don't want to enjoy the benefit of a pilot for whatever reason, they can put the property back on the tax rolls. Now, if they were to close their doors and move to North Carolina, or they were in default under the documents relative to employment, or they used too much sales tax, that's a different analysis.
Okay.
But I can take a closer look at that if that's something the board would like me to do.
It's really a rhetorical question, because the probability of collecting from them, I think, would be zero in any event. So I was just thinking that.
Well, I wonder if it wouldn't be worth looking into anyway. I mean, for two reasons. One of which is that I believe that this board issued approvals based on an entire package, and specifically on job creation at the end of their benefits. And one of the things, my concern would be that if the agreement is terminated, which I agree with Russ, it actually is better for everybody. It's paying 100% taxes. That's fine. But then we haven't been able to evaluate the end of the deal upon which, we made our bargain, right? Which was that it's going to create jobs. And if it's not open yet, how can we determine if we haven't had to report yet on that? The only thing we've reported on are construction jobs, and whether or not they've exceeded their caps on sales and use and mortgage recording tax. So I don't know, based on the board's feedback, if that's something that this board would like to pursue or like us to pursue further. We can certainly do that and then get back at the September meeting and talk about it further. But I know that I've had conversations with board members, not just for this project, but for many projects, where if a project only gets a sales tax exemption and then sells right after, what do we do? How is this a benefit ultimately to Orange County? And, we have a responsibility to the taxpayers, and we have a responsibility to ensure that the incentives that are being extended for the right reasons. So that would be my commentary on that. But again, I think.
And I'd like to ask the question of the board as well, so I have my marching orders once we're done, and assuming the board adopts this resolution, do you want me to ask them that question? Hey, have you crunched the numbers? Do you know what this is going to cost you if you go back on the tax rolls versus continue the pilot? Or, hey, that's your choice. That's your problem.
My knee-jerk reaction to that is no. We've had they've been uncooperative right from the get-go. We've had problems with the construction problem, and to they're not making good decisions, because I can assure you they've not crunched the numbers, because had they done that, they would have realized the $2,500 and plus whatever benefit they're going to get from the SBA is far going to outweigh, the benefits are going to far outweigh the cost. So I don't feel compelled to do anything.
Okay.
The question I would ask is, and again, maybe this is rhetorical to some extent, but do we have the ability, the right, or the willingness to go after him for the $2,500, notwithstanding the termination? Because that money
Yes,
goes to us.
that obligation would survive termination of the documents. And I we wouldn't do anything until I told them, the board's not going to do anything, terminate or subordinate or whatever else you're asking until that's resolved.
Okay.
So I would make it clear to them that, look, the board authorized the termination, but we're not signing or effectuating or implementing anything until this is paid, because it's not as though this is this is being billed in arrears. It's due.
Right. Okay, I'm good with that.
But I also have an issue
Lori,
with,
Lori, didn't you say the bank, right, is looking for a release, so they have to pay it, or else we're not
Right.
given a release?
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah, they can't close the loan without that. See, the thing is, if they terminate the agreement, then they don't need the release from us. That's where they're coming from. So
Right,
if they
exactly.
terminate, the SBA doesn't care, because then the property will revert back to their name, and our name will be out of the chain of title.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Ed, did you have something you wanted to say?
well, my concern is the $80,000, or whatever the number is on the sales tax exemption, more court tax. That, to me, that's taxpayer dollars that the taxpayers are cheated out of now,
Right.
because the business isn't going, well, it may go forward, but are they going to hire the people? Are they going to, so I'd like to go after that money.
Well, I
Let
agree.
me do
and
this. Let me look at the recapture provisions, Ed and
Okay.
board. What? So my suggestion, and I already advised them prior to this meeting, that it sounded like there was not going to be any action taken, and so I leave it to the board. Do you want to adopt the resolution subject to pursuing all remedies available, or recapture remedies that we may have available to us, and the payment of any amounts outstanding, or do you just want to table it and wait till next month?
My only comment on that would be, the only thing I would be okay with is just going back to them saying, you owe us $2,500 and change. And then once that's paid, I would like to understand what, if anything, we can do to what Mr. Diana had said. Because this can't be seen as a normal
Right,
way
exactly.
to do
Yeah.
business.
Right,
And-
it's
and-
a
and-
loophole.
And I really don't want to hear that it was too hard, or, it's too much paperwork, or it's this or that, because there is a huge benefit to use us. And if a company has run the numbers and done the math, then they know by using us, there is some things they have to do, but there's a savings, there's some cash savings. So I would only be comfortable with going back to them saying, you have a bill that's outstanding. Once that's paid, we'll start to talk about what else we could maybe recapture, if anything. And then after that discussion happens, then we would discuss whether or not we're going to be okay with getting released or releasing them. So I would think that's another 60 days, if it was me.
Okay, I think that's a fair
Well,
direction for me to follow.
I think that's a good suggestion, Jim. What I would add to that is that, in connection with the sales tax, and to Ed's point regarding the business and the jobs, maybe we can get some tangible information and update as to the status of the business and what's going on there. While we have, while they owe us money and we have some leverage against them, let's use the leverage as much as possible.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I would imagine when Russ gets back to them that it's going to get combative. So I don't know how much they're going to be willing to give us. I just think it's just going to go down another road. And I'm not afraid of that, but
Right.
This can't be the way we do things.
No, that's right. And we
Right.
have a history with this company also. I mean,
Right.
it's been a fight right from the beginning, so.
Exactly right. As Mary Ellen pointed out at the outset, they've been kind of difficult to deal with since the very beginning. And the fact that they're, squabbling over a $2,500
Right.
labor monitoring policy or bill is somewhat telling. in my
Yeah,
opinion. So-
yeah, I agree.
Okay,
Okay,
so what?
And I wonder, I want to ask one other question though, too. In the event that it has been mentioned, if there's an issue over a $2,500 bill, and then there may not be money to recapture from sales tax, exemptions and mortgage recording tax exemptions, which I do think is the right avenue to take. If that is impossible, would we be within within the parameters and the framework of the agreements that we're already into to say that, okay, fine, we'll terminate it, but we still expect jobs figures for a year or two? I mean, find something in the middle where we can say that at least we can justify the sales tax and mortgage recording tax that was already extended. If we can't record it or can't recapture it, we can at least say the jobs were still there on the other end, and then at least have a check and a balance.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's something that could be the argument. That argument could be made that, hey, look, you got the benefit of the sales and mortgage recording tax and a year of the pilot or whatever it is, and therefore the job requiring reporting for 2020 or whatever the period is, you still have to do, and you've got to provide that information to us.
Right.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
Well, it's going to be once we severed the
I know, then
relationship,
what's
it's
how
going to
do
be
you-
real hard to get information.
Right.
How do you enforce it? I know. I'm just
No
throwing it
offense,
out.
no offense to our legal team, which I think are hold in high regards, but the only people that are going to end up making out on that deal is the attorneys.
right.
So once we sever the agreement, like I said, it's going to get combative. And when if you ask them for a box of paper clips, keep waiting. So
Right.
Well,
that
trust me, I'm
doesn't
not
mean-
making out on this in any way, shape, or form.
no,
And-
you know what I mean. I'm just.
I know
I'm
what
just-
you mean, but
Well, that doesn't mean we shouldn't ask, just because we can have low expectations about what we think the probability of getting the
Hey, you could always ask. You could always ask.
Right.
Oh, that's right. That's exactly right.
And Jim and Marilyn, what we can do once we figured out from a business plan going forward basis what it is that we want to do and require of them, when we do terminate, if we terminate, you can have survival provisions in that document. Now, Jim, practically speaking, what's that worth? I don't know, but you would then have a contractual obligation on their part to provide us whatever rights or obligations survive, even though we've terminated. So,
Right.
Yeah,
But see-
I'm not opposed to that. I think that's a good idea. I'm just.
I think I do too. I think what it would provide to us is, let's just say for argument's sake, excuse me, that they do terminate, but there's provisions in the agreements that, still require them to provide the information and they don't provide it. I think the absence of the reporting would give us the right to recapture, correct?
right.
So that's a reason to do it alone, and I mean, I think when you have a conversation with them, I would make it very clear to them that, we are more than willing to recapture these benefits if the facts don't, come out to be what they were contemplated to be.
Okay.
You guys agree?
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree with it, but
Okay.
at the same time, either I almost don't want to deal with these folks. If
No,
they don't want us, they don't want us.
Well, that's right.
It's going to be a headache for everybody.
Yeah, we can have an argument with ourselves, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So you know what to do,
But-
Russ?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, thank you. So there's no resolution then, I guess, until,
No, ma'am.
yeah, okay. All righty, and then, I guess we'll talk about it next month.
Well, the only thing is, just let's stay on this for a minute. The only leverage we have is not allowing them to go forward in getting the SBA loan. That's the leverage we have. Once we give that ability up, then they're going to do whatever they want to do. I mean, do you agree, Russ? I mean, the leverage is in the loan. And
Well-
the loan is telling us that if we don't do certain things, they can't go forward. Right?
Well, the SBA will not back off on the subordination. I can guarantee you that.
Oh,
They
yeah,
will not.
absolutely.
Right.
If it doesn't fit into their square peg, they're not going to go forward. I can tell you that. So yes, that we have leverage in that regard. But whatever it is we decide to do, terminate, recapture,
Right.
not terminate until they pay, and terminate subject to certain
I
rights
understand.
surviving, then that's really all we can do, Ed. You know,
Okay.
so let me speak, let me make it clear to them why we tabled and what we expect from them and what we will do if in fact they don't comply.
Okay,
And then I can speak more intelligently about it with Lori, Vinny, and Kevin for next month's meeting, and we can come back with a recommendation for the board.
okay, that would be perfect.
Okay.
All
All
right,
right?
any other comments, gentlemen? Okay, hearing none.
Maybe look into if the situation arises again and we can't recapture the sales tax.
Right.
Yeah,
You better believe it.
We have something when they sign that. And this was already done. We have one party that built a certain building and then sold it for a profit, yet,
right,
you know, the sales tax was still in his pocket. You know, so there's got to be things. I'm not trying to nickel and dime everybody, but if you're just going to flip something, take the sales tax, that's how many hundreds of thousands are possible,
Right.
whatever in your pocket.
no, that's
on
right,
top of
that's
the
exactly
profit you
right.
just made. We should
Yeah,
put
and the
some-
good is this doesn't happen very often, so I have to refresh my recollection, quite frankly, as to the specifics relative to recapturing sales tax.
Yeah,
So,
Right.
you know, we may have
Well,
some.
there's loopholes.
footing
People are
there.
going to find out about this. They'll use that loophole in a second.
right,
Right.
so, okay.
All right. Thank
Um,
you.
All right, thank you, Russ. So I guess, do we need to go into executive session? Well, let me ask, is there any other board business before we do that? Okay, so hearing none, we want to go into executive session for,
Kevin has it. It's for,
Credit, financial, and employment history of a client of the IDA.
okay.
So
I
moved.
need, thank you, I need a second. Second, thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Melanie, can you let John back in? There he is. Okay. Okay, so we're finished with the executive session of the board. So help me introduce the subject matter that we need to introduce.
Sure. So one last item for today's meeting before we adjourn would be that we want to, we are going to discuss an ad in the Wall Street Journal that we're partnering with the county for promotion of Camp LaGuardia. They reached out to us with a request. So I guess, you know, at the end of the day, we have a proposal for $74,000 for an ad in the Wall Street Journal. And I'm sorry. Oh, I thought I heard somebody say something. So then we would look for, I would be looking for a motion for how much the board would be willing to contribute to that. Again, it was for $74,000. We've been told by the county that any amount would be welcome. So just looking for a motion and an amount, please.
I'll make the motion just to add on that. It's, I know we had mentioned Camp LaGuardia, but for Orange County. To
Okay.
include our.
Yeah, I
all
would
of-
second that. I would second
can
that.
say how
that it's
much.
For,
25,000, I believe.
Okay, okay.
I'll second the motion and agree to that it's to promote Orange County.
Right, okay, good. You got any questions or comments, Ed?
No.
Okay, so hearing none, we have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay,
Aye.
Do we also have to add to that, we're not first in, discussed? Maybe we would wait till the full amount is in, then, or it doesn't
I don't
matter,
think it needs to
right?
be part of the motion. Laura and I
No.
can talk about that.
yeah, that's
Right.
just an operational item or a
Yeah.
policy item. Yeah, okay.
Good point, though,
Madam
Mike.
Chairwoman,
Okay, and just please note that Mr. McCary abstained from the vote. Okay.
he recused himself also, I believe, so.
Yes, and he
Chair,
recused.
should we have done a roll call on that? Just to,
And
No,
also,
it's just a budget item, right?
Mr.
No,
President,
it should be roll call.
It should, okay.
Yeah, because you're
So-
spending your money.
Okay. All right, so we'll do the roll call. So Mr. Diana,
Yes.
Mr. Gatos,
Yes.
Mr. DeSalvo,
yes.
Chairman Rogolski, yes, and Mr. McCary abstains.
and Mr. Brescia also recused and he left the
Yeah, he left the meeting.
meeting,
Yeah,
so.
thank you, Kevin. Okay, so is there anything else to be brought up before this august body this afternoon?
No.
All right, so hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the Orange County IDA meeting for August.
So moved.
Yes.
Thank
Don't
you.
go anywhere.
Yeah, don't go anywhere. All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
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 Okay, good.